Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my April wrap-up. It's just this little pile right here. There really isn't that much that I read in April, but I feel like it was a quality over quantity month. I had 0 DNFs. Well, okay, I technically had like a DNF, but if you guys have watched this channel, you know that I don't count anything that I under 50 pages. I have to read 50 pages or over to count it as a DNF. Otherwise, it's kind of more like a taste test kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, it's just not for me. And that's kind of what happened with the book that I DNF. So technically I didn't DNF it, but the Headmaster's List by Melissa De La Cruz, that was a DNF. But other than that, I had a great time this month. This actually was a really, really good reading month. It took me quite a bit of time to read the books, but I think it worked out in my favor. I took my time reading. I read one book at a time. And the other reason I didn't read as much is I am reading a super, super chunky book because I am still working on my March. Oh gosh, it's been so long. My March Wheel of No Appeal. If you guys have been looking for that, I know there's a small group of people who watch those. I'm still reading that book and I'm liking it, but it's like 800 pages. So you can kind of guess what the book is, but you can probably guess what that is, and it's taking me flipping forever. So that's kind of why I got a little sidetracked. And I'm also working on reading Fairyloot books. So that has took me a little bit because some of the books were a bit long this month, and I'm still in the middle of one of the other ones. So that's why 2 of these books I will not be giving you ratings for. You can probably guess from my facial expressions. I'm not really not good at hiding what I think about things. So yeah, there's 2 of them that I will not be able to tell you what I rated them, but because that video is still in the works and will be coming out, and it kind of ruins like adjusting the ratings, and it ruins the vlog because like I said, I'm currently working on reading my unread Fairyloot books because my subscribers voted on which book box they wanted me to start on, and overwhelmingly started on Fairyloot. So that's what I'm trying to get through, and I've read 2 of the 3 that I'm reading for that vlog. I really need to get to the 3rd one. So that's kind of where I am with that, which is again why, sorry, I can't tell you 2 of the ratings. You'll have to wait for that vlog to come out. So if you've watched all my vlogs, you probably know what most of these ratings are because they've been fit into vlogs one way or another, at least most of them. I think maybe one hasn't. Yeah, we're gonna start with one that was in my last chance author video for Melissa De La Cruz, and that is Going Dark. That was a library book that I have already returned because I did not want to, you know, go past my due date with that. But yeah, Going Dark by Melissa De La Cruz was a wild ride. If you want to watch the whole thing, like I said, it's in that vlog. You can go check it out. If not, I gave it a 4-star. It was so much fun. There's no spoilers in that video or anything, and it's really hard to talk about the book because I want to reference another piece of media, because the book is like so it is an adult thriller. It does read a little bit young for adults, so if you kind of like that in between young adult and adult type thing, you will enjoy this book. But it is following our main character who has a big social media following, and I cannot remember her name. She's our main character, but she's never like, you don't see her that much in the book because it's other people talking about what's going on because she's gone missing. And she has this huge social media following, so the internet is like obsessed with her disappearance, and we're following her boyfriend and a hacker who becomes obsessed with the case. So it's very interesting seeing what's going on from those 2 perspectives instead of like the missing girl. And like you have sections where you go back in time, and it's just like very interesting. It's very fun. It is definitely almost a direct ripoff. It is a little bit different. It's almost a direct ripoff of a very, very popular book / turned movie, but at the same time, I still very much enjoyed it and gave it a 4-star, so I was very happy with that one. So moving on to books that I physically own, we are first going to be talking about Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. So I read this as a buddy read with my mom at the beginning of this month. I think I gave this a 3.5. This was honestly kind of a disappointment following my obsession with Dal A for Aunties. And what was the second book? I literally cannot remember what the second book is called. But whatever the second book in that series was. This is the same author, and so my mom and I buddy read those books as well, so we were super excited about this one coming out. She liked it more than I did. I think she gave it a 4, I think, for this one, and I gave it a 3.5 because I just didn't feel like super connected to the characters in this one like I did in her other series. So I'm more excited to get back into that series. This was still fun. This had very funny moments. Something that really bugged my mom and I is, so you see this lady on the front, little old lady, that's kind of how she talks. She talks about how old she is all the time. They talk about how frail she is, etc. She's supposed to be 60 years old. My mom is 60, and so she was like, my hair's not even gray yet. So she was pissed off. I was pissed off. So we kind of, instead of imagining her as a 60-year-old, we kind of pictured her as like in her 80s to 90s, because that's more how she acted and more how they described her. So we thought that was the only part that we both were kind of like, this is weird. Like the way that she's described is very strange for her age. So we think the age was a little bit off, but other than that, it was fun. It was cute. If you were thinking about reading this, I would say give it a go. I needed something more from this book, and I could not tell you what it is though. That's the problem. I don't know exactly why I didn't love this book. Next, we probably have my biggest surprise of the month, and that is Edvika and the Hollywood Wives. This is the only book from Book of the Month last month that I got to. It's really bad. I have so many books from Book of the Month last month to read because I think I either got 4 or 5 books and I've read one of them. But this one book was a 4.5. I am absolutely obsessed with this book. Absolutely obsessed with this book. The funny thing about this book is it almost feels like a continuation of the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And so basically the premise of this is Edvika is an aspiring like writer in Hollywood. So she wants to write screenplays, all that type of stuff, but it's really hard obviously to get a big break. And on top of that, there's like a lot of racism in the industry against her, and her being a brown woman is what she calls it. And it's just a lot of issues getting into that, and people look down on her for that. But then she suddenly meets this I think he's a producer, this very wealthy, very influential producer who immediately takes a shining to her, and they end up getting married in this like whirlwind romance, but there's like red flags kind of flying everywhere, but they're subtle at first. But the big point of this is that one of his ex-wives dies. He has like 4 ex-wives or something like that, 3 or 4 ex-wives, and one of them recently passed away. And in her will, she said she will give Edvika $1 million if she divorces her husband. And I'm sitting there going, is this Evelyn Hugo come back from the dead? Because that's what it feels like. It feels, because you get to know the woman like who left the $1 million a little bit in part of the sections when she's trying to figure out why she wants to do this, why she wants to give Edvika $1 million. You kind of learn about this historical figure, and there's so like, she vibes like Evelyn Hugo. So I loved that. So for me, it almost felt like Evelyn Hugo, as she was dying in like the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, she put this will together against one of her ex-husbands who was bad, who just married someone else. That's literally what it feels like. And then this is like the continuation story of Edvika getting the will, etc. And it's just so good. It's so good. It is a bit dark. There's definitely themes of spousal abuse, especially psychological abuse. It messes with your head because it wants you to really like think about what's going on. It wants you to question what's happening. It wants you to think about everybody's motives because she has her own motives to be married as well. So it's like, what's the gray area here? But this is so good. It reads so quickly. It's so much fun. And again, if you want something that kind of continues, if you think about her, the woman like Evelyn Hugo, it does feel like that to me. So I had a great time with this. I highly, highly recommend this one. The next book I read this month was also a buddy read with my mom. She really wanted to read a lot of books with me this month, which I was super excited about because she is reading through the Outlander series. I feel like I've said this before on this channel, but she's on like book 5 or 6, I think. I have them all right there in the corner. I have not even read them, but once you put a book in front of her face, she's like, okay, I'll read it. I don't know how she does it, but it's so impressive. But she wanted a break from reading the Outlanders because she's getting into like the 1,300 page books, which are insane. And so she's like, I need something lighter to read. So we read Vera Wong between one book and the other, and then we decided to read The Retreat. So she likes thrillers and stuff, so I lent her my copy of The Sanatorium, which she actually really enjoyed. She liked it more than I did. I think she gave it a 5-star and I gave it like a 3.5. I still enjoyed it. I loved following the characters in it, and I love continued police procedural kind of things. So I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to read The Retreat. And so I bought this last year, literally when it first came out. When it first came out, and I never read it. And my mom read The Sanatorium in between that time. And then I was like, hey mom, she has a second book out. Do you want to read it? And she was like, yes, I want to read it. So we read this book together, and it's so fun because she's a slower reader than I am, or she claims. I think she's faster than I am, because sometimes she would be like, oh, I'm at page 200. And I'm like, it's been a day. What are you doing? Because she sets out like 2 hours a day to read. It's really cool. I'm so impressed with her being able to do that, because I cannot sit down and be like, you're going to read for 2 hours. I cannot do that. So the fact that she can is just like, I don't know how people could do it. I don't know how people can do it. So anyway, how we read it is she'll read a section during her like 2-hour reading, or however long she's able to read that day, because sometimes obviously she's busy and doing other things. But she will tell me where she got to, and then the next day I'll read to that point and we'll talk about it before she reads the next section. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. With this book, it didn't work that way because she got food poisoning in the middle of reading this, like really bad. She was sick for like a week, and so she did not read anything. So I ended up finishing the book before she did, and then once she got back to reading, we talked about it afterwards. But it was so much fun reading it that way. I highly suggest doing that with a friend. If you have never buddy read something, it doesn't matter if it's your mom or your dad or whoever, it doesn't matter. Read with whoever you want. It's so much fun to talk about like your own little mini book club. So yeah, I think I also give this one a 3.5 because it fell into the same issue that the Sanatorium did. If you read the Sanatorium, you know it kind of got a little convoluted and a little over the top. Same thing happened this one. I actually think the Sanatorium was better done than this one. This one had so many red herrings, so many random tangent plot lines, so many things of trying to make everything make sense all together, and it just didn't need that. Like, some of the stuff should have just stayed as red herrings. I feel like almost nothing stayed a red herring. It was all crammed together and everything had to make sense. And so my mom and I got to the end and were like, enjoyed the ride, but the end was kind of weird. So go into this with a grain of salt. Go into it thinking it as a little bit ridiculous and over the top, but it was still a really fun read, and we will be picking up the next book, even though it's not been announced, which is making me nervous, but this ended on a cliffhanger again, because the Sanatorium ended on a cliffhanger. This ended on a cliffhanger again. I thought it was going to be a duology series. If it is, I'm going to be mad because there are so many unanswered questions, and it obviously is leading into another book. So we will be picking it up when it happens. And then the next one that I picked up, I was having a bit of, for the past like 2 months, I've been having some medical issues, which are super fun. Finally starting to figure them out, which has definitely helped my reading. When I am upset or like in pain, etc., I don't read. I can't focus on it, so I just watch a buttload of TV. But I was trying to get out of this reading slump that I was having with emotions, etc., trying to get myself back on track. And when I started feeling better, I was like, okay, let's read something that I feel like is just gonna make me happy. And so I really, really enjoyed, I know a lot of people didn't, don't judge me. I really, really enjoyed The Hating Game, the movie. Okay, don't judge me. I'm actually going to be coming out with a video comparing the book and the movie because there's a lot to talk about actually with that. But I really liked the movie. It was just a guilty pleasure. It was super fun. I loved Lucy as Lucy. Absolutely loved that. Didn't love the guy who played Josh as Josh. I'm not like his biggest fan. I didn't think that was super cast well. But overall, I really, really liked it. I liked the story. And if I could, I would put the first half of the movie onto the second half of the book. I feel like the first half of the movie was a lot stronger than the first half of the book, but the second half of the book was way stronger than the second half of the movie. So again, I'm getting sidetracked, but like you can probably guess, I read The Hating Game. This is the first time I've ever read it, and I gave it a 4-star, and that 4-star is mostly because of the first half. I felt like it definitely dragged a little bit, and I didn't really feel the connection between the characters at the beginning, and Lucy was really annoying at the beginning for me. I liked Lucy, kind of the whole thing. I liked Lucy in the movies way better than this, but Josh in this was literally 1,000 times better than Josh in the movie. So I'm all over the place for this because I want to pull things from both and like mash it together. But anyway, like I said, I gave this a 4. very much enjoyed this. Like I said, I really like Josh, and this was just a fun read. Like, if you haven't read it yet, I would highly suggest it if you just want like a very fast, very fast, cute rom-com. And it's like workplace, super enemies to lovers, like super enemies to lovers. So very fun, highly enjoyed this one. The next one that I read, I've actually been waiting a while to read, even though actually it came out in February and I read it in April, so it's only been 2 months. But I wanted to finish this duology because I read the first book when it first came out, and it left off on a pretty big cliffhanger, and I was like, I need to know what happens. So finally, I read Immortality, a Love Story. This is the second book in the Anatomy, a Love Story duology. It is finished. I honestly could not tell you what happened in this book. This is a 3.75 for me. But I'm trying to think about what happened in this, and I don't know if I could tell you. Like, I literally don't know if I could tell you. Okay, I remembered. I had to look through the book a little bit, but this is following our main character from the first book, Hazel. And if you don't know anything about the first book is she wants to be a physician, but it's like Victorian times, and obviously that is not with women. Women are too dumb, apparently, to be physicians, and they're too delicate, so nobody wants them to be physicians. But Hazel is like, screw that, I am super smart, and I want to do that, and she dresses as a boy in the first one and like takes some classes, and then there's stuff that happens, and she ends up meeting a body snatcher, and that's kind of the romance in the first one. That one's cute. Landed on a cliffhanger. So this one opens up, basically, yeah, it pretty much opens up like a year? I don't know if it's even been a year from the first book, and she is doing her physician things, and she basically is having some issues. I'm trying to like talk about it without giving anything away. But she gets called in to do some stuff for the royalty, etc. And that's kind of most of the book, is her dealing with the royalty and the stuff with romance. And yeah, I really can't say anything about it. I think this book ended in a very easy way. But at the same time, I still liked it. I don't know how to, so I got a 3.75 because I feel like it meandered a little bit through the book as I'm meandering now. And I feel like the end was a little too easy. I felt like the end was just like, oh yeah. And it was just way too easy. But I like the idea behind the ending, and I can't talk about it, and it's killing me. But I like the promise of the ending, basically. So if you were thinking about reading this duology, I think give it a shot. I think it's worth a shot. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this one, and the atmosphere is fantastic. I love the atmosphere of these books. I don't know. I feel like as a duology, I actually like them better instead of separate books. Like, I feel like if I read them back to back, it would have been much better than reading them a year apart. So that's kind of my thing. If you want to read the series, I would read it like right next to each other. Like, just set out time and just read both books together. So that's kind of my suggestion for these. Okay, the last two books, I cannot tell you the rating. I'm sorry. They are for the Fairyloot Did I Read My Books in the Boxes video, so I cannot tell you what I rated them because that would ruin it. But I read Incendiary, which is the oldest book I have for Fairyloot, and one of them for Alcrate, I think, too, but I obviously chose Fairyloot first, so I read the Fairyloot version. And Defy the Night, which is my second oldest that I have for Fairyloot. I'm going in order just because that is the easiest way for me to think about it. I don't know if I'll continue that throughout because there are some like very chunky books, and I don't want like massive books in the same video, because I'm running into that problem because the book that I haven't read that I should have read already is Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and after reading this chunker, and then this one's actually not that bad. It actually is still like 400 something pages, but it's tiny. It's very small. I just didn't have it in me to go into another 500 page fantasy because Daughter of the Moon Goddess is, I think, like 480 something pages. So I did not have it in me to immediately go into that one. But I did read these, and once I finished Daughter of the Moon Goddess, this video will release, and as well as my update on stats. So at the end of each of these book box videos, there will be an update on the stats and how my star rating has changed. And I'll keep the original like rating and see like how much it changes once I get to the very end, once I've read all of them, which is gonna take a really long time. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys. I'm sorry I can't tell you the ratings, but I feel like that tells you everything. If it suddenly got quiet because you weren't looking at the screen, you might want to rewind it for a second to see what my face did when I showed the books. So anyway, that's all I have for you guys in this wrap up. I had a great time in April. So if you've made it this far, you are going to get possibly a little sneak peek of what I'm going to be doing next month that I'm currently working on. It is very exciting. I have been really wanting to get into making TBRs, but me just picking books and being like, hey, you need to read that is not working for me. I love all these booktubers and how they're creating this amazing games that they're playing, and it makes me want to do it too. So thank you so much to all the booktubers who have made these really cool games. And I was trying to think of something separate, like something completely different, because obviously I don't want to like steal anyone's games. That's not cool. So something I've always wanted to do is make a very interactive, immersive gameplay. So how it's going to work is each genre is going to have a separate island, basically its own like poster board. And there's going to be a starting point where the queen has basically sent the person on a mission in this world, and they have to hop from like spot to spot. There's going to be prompts for every single spot, different prompt for the whole board for every spot. And then there's going to be mandatory stopping points that are missions, and it's just going to be harder prompts, more specific prompts. So I am very excited about it, and I'm literally so excited about it. But I'm not like super creative and artsy, so I'm running into some issues. So I'm hoping this is going to roll out in what is it? This is May. I hope it's going to roll out in June, but it may roll out in July would be the problem. So I don't know yet. I don't know yet. But if you've made it this far in the video, I would love you guys to leave a world emoji. Is that an emoji? I don't know. Something too close to a continent or a world for the spoiler that you guys kind of heard about literally exclusively here. But thank you so much for watching this video. I had a great time filming it. I'm standing up, which is weird. It's weird, but I'm also enjoying it. And make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed already. That'd be crazy if you weren't subscribed already, wouldn't it? And then make sure you like the video if you enjoyed the content, and make sure you comment down below if you've read any of these books, if you want to read any of these books. If you think you know some books that I would like based on what I liked, I would love to hear that. So that's all I got for you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.